What is going on, everyone? Welcome to the 11th edition of the Littleroot Record. Today we're joined by our first return guest, Chalkey. Chalkey, how are you?
Great, great. To everyone who's hearing me for two times now, I apologize, but it's great to be back.
I am on the record saying Chalkey is the nicest person in the entire community, and that is why he deserves multiple episodes and whatever the hell else he wants. And if anyone has complaints about hearing Chalkey twice, send them to me so I can block you. And so the reason why we're actually having Chalkey as our return guest, when we first spoke back in the 6th edition of the Littleroot Record, we ended up having to skip a few questions because we ended up going on an unplanned discussion about the importance of safe spaces for all players in the Pokemon community. And we felt like that definitely superseded what we're about to talk, the silliness that we're about to talk about today, which is mostly side events. So going right into it, Chalky, can you tell the listeners what a side event is?
Yeah. So whenever you're at a regional championship or international championship or world championship, there's going to be the main event where people are competing, and then there's side events in the same hall where you can play different kind of games for sometimes for tickets for a prize wall or sometimes just for fun. There's usually one or two that are the standard format, and there's also some that are just for fun formats. And the one that I'm sure we'll talk about a lot in this podcast is Chaos Cup, where you just show up and they give you a team and you just pilot it against a bunch of other people who show up and get a team. My favorite TCG one is sometimes known as Pick a Pack, where you just get a literal booster pack and some energy cards on the house, and then you just design a deck based on what you get, and you just try to compete against other people that have the exact same starting point. There's also one known as the box draft, which is a very similar concept, but for VGC. There's every once in a while for very specific TOs, they might have a retro station where you can compete in some older generations. But it's a lot of fun, and it's what I really like about it is it's emphasizing, we have this event for everybody. It's, you don't have to be the greatest player in the world or a world's qualifier to have fun at the World Championships and take home a prize for the World Championships.
No, that's definitely great, and we can actually just dive right into the Chaos Cup because you've been very closely associated with pretty much the entire process of the cup for at least a year, I want to say. Do you want to just dive into a little more exactly what it is and how you got involved in it, and maybe your current role in the Chaos Cup?
Yeah. So I'll keep some details off the podcast just because
Worlds is coming up.
Worlds is coming up, and to stay a little bit on brand with what I should and shouldn't say. But the short of it is I started being involved in this for NAIC of 2023, and I've done NAIC 2023, Worlds 2023, a little bit for LAIC of this past year, and for the Liverpool regional out in Europe, and then one more European one, as well as EUIC, and then most recently I just did NAIC, and I'm currently working on the World's Chaos Cup right now. And I was just joking earlier that there's a lot of people that are really nervous about perping their one Worlds team, and I'm nervous about perping my 8 Worlds teams. So in terms of what Chaos Cup is, so I said a second ago, what you'll do is all you do is you show up with your Switch, and you will randomly be assigned a rental code, and you pilot that to victory against other people that are also randomly given a code in that moment, and they have just as much starting knowledge as you, and you just try to make the best of what you have. What I really love about Chaos Cup is that it's a very accessible thing, because I think sometimes one of the barriers to competing at a really high level at major events is that it takes a lot of time to build your own team, and it takes sometimes a lot of money if you're trying to get a very meta relevant team of things like you've got Urshifu from Sword and Shield, and you've got Miraidon and Koraidon exclusively on Scarlet and Violet. So if you have a team that has every relevant Pokemon, you're going to need every relevant game, which is always tough. But with the Chaos Cup, all you do is you show up with the most recent game, and then we build the team for you. And then depending on who is running the tournaments, they might have different instructions for me in terms of how involved I am. So there are some of Chaos Cups where I am just building the teams. They give me, this is what they designed, what somebody else designed, and my job is just bring it to life and build it in Scarlet and Violet. Sometimes they will give me partial inputs where they have an idea what they're going for, and they will just give me a little bit of inputs, and then we build it together. And then sometimes they just give me a theme and they say, this is the theme, make 8 teams. And so those are the scariest ones, because I always panic that if somebody doesn't have fun, then it's entirely my fault. And I am very sad about that. But the challenge for me from a building perspective is, when you're a competitor, you're trying to build one team that is good into as many teams as possible. But it's a very different skill to build 8 teams that are all equal into each other, that have like an equal chance of winning. And to a certain extent, that's basically impossible. So if you just happen to get the short straw at Worlds, I sincerely apologize. And I am trying as hard as I can to make as many teams have answers to other teams as possible. Of course, there's also the trick of, do people see the teams the way I do, and will they gravitate towards the answers to each team that I do? But the hope is that every team will have one response to every other team, even if it's not apparent, like entirely obvious. Depending on who is in charge of the main project, there's also going to be different stipulations. For example, a lot of the American ones, you'll have Chaos Cup teams that are all intended to play each other. So with the one that was notable trainers themed, such as Blue, Nimona, Cynthia, the originally intended draft was that everyone would possibly play everybody else, which was very fun for the chaos aspect, but perhaps not as fun from the balancing aspect, because if you there's a lot more you have to think about, and there's a lot more the players could randomly run into that we wouldn't intend. And then there's more European Chaos Cups from the last year. What they actually did was they designed pods of 2, where if you were X rental code, you would always play Y rental code. And they would get a little bit more ambitious with their teams. So sometimes, so the one for EUIC was probably one of the coolest things I ever built, even if it was extremely stressful getting it together. But what they did was they had the former EUIC champ versus the current EUIC champ. And then you would have the former world's champ versus I misspoke. You would have the EUIC 23 champ versus the EUIC 23 runner-up. And you would have the world's runner-up versus the world champ. And you would have another team that was more gimmicky, where they'd be like, they had twins versus triplets. So you had, for example, a triplet would be like Hydreigon or Mousehold family of 3, things like that. Then we had other, there were a couple other themes, and I'm blanking on remembering all of them, but it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun. The only downside to the super ambitious EOIC one was that I had to start over a save file many times to get all the different legendaries that were involved. The number of Tinglus I needed was quite a lot. The number of different restricted legendaries was quite a lot. And what was kind of neat about the EOIC one was they had what we now know as Regulation G before we knew that was going to be the new format. So people got a chance to practice the format early for those who did the Chaos Cup then. And there was also a 2 restricted pot of 2. So you had I want to say it was still Groudon versus Kyogre, but I forget what the other 2 restricteds were. But yeah, so wonderful from a ambition standpoint and design standpoint. It was a little bit terrifying to get to have to build that in the time that I had before UIC, but we got there and people enjoyed it.
Yeah, you definitely had to have at least some like tips and tricks, or you just knew like this is the path I got to take to like actually like to like get the starters, or like well, to get everything for like a speed running standpoint for efficiency. I know for certain you probably know exactly where all of those Ting Lu stakes are, because that's got to be the worst part.
I definitely don't.
Oh no.
I had to I had to bumble my way through that every single time and be like, okay, this time I'm going to remember it's right there, and then I would overshoot it and just go to the wrong rock or something. Um, I did get a little bit of wisdom with experience, so I'm no speedrunner, but I did start to do a couple things. So whenever reasonably possible, I would always try to do the team star battles before the gym leaders, because if I could do as many gym leaders in a row as possible after that, then I wouldn't need three Pokemon in my party anymore, and I could skip the "Do you want to switch Pokemon" animation that happens every time. Uh, I have not done a lot of research into like what is the optimal starter, but I really like Meowscarada for Scarlet and Violet, because between Dark, Grass, and Fairy, there's not only a lot of strong moves, but there's also a lot of neutral moves, which means that you can skip the "It's super effective" animation that happens, which saves a lot of time over the course of an entire playthrough. Um, and because I needed to get multiple Urshifu for for EUIC, the one tip I have for people is when Honey gives you the option to choose Squirtle or Bulbasaur, I always choose Bulbasaur, because if you're playing Sword in particular, and you have to do the battle with the toxic spikes that are always there, just sending out Bulbasaur on turn 0 means that the toxic spikes are gone, and then that animation is removed 6 times, which is great.
No, yeah, that definitely is huge. Like it is like those microseconds just keep on adding up, especially when you have to run through a game multiple times. Now, of course, people playing these side events, what are they playing in them for? Like, is there like different prizing? Like, is it? Of course, it's not championship points, but like, what are the players getting out of it outside of another fun way to play the game?
Well, there's often a prize wall. I shouldn't say there's always a prize wall, but there's usually a prize wall. So you'll get either tickets or tokens, in some case, little dice that you can exchange for things like either booster packs or plushies. Um, in rare occasions, I see those like giant plushies that are, um, 4 feet tall, 250 pounds, and the ones that will never fit in your suitcase, but you're going to try as hard as you can to just get it in the overhead bin and the airplane home.
The ones where you're going to the nearest UPS store the next day before you leave.
Oh man, I have nothing but respect for the one time the Pokemon Center had like a UPS like right next to the store, and they were like offering to ship it back home for you. Like that was amazing. Um,
Yeah.
Not something we can realistically expect for every tournament, but I love whoever thought of that. Uh,
Last year, so NAIC 23, one of my friends, Rachel, she got the massive like Altaria that was as tall as her, and she drove like she was with a group who drove from Chicago down to Columbus, and on the way back, like they it was a 5 person car with 4 people, and on the way back it was a 5 person car with 4 people and a massive plushie that was bigger than all of the people in the car, pretty much.
Wonderful, wonderful.
So yeah, that is the benefit if you can drive to events that have these Pokemon centers in it. You know you get to take the massive plushie and just put it in the backseat of your car. You can use the passenger lanes now, the carpool lanes, because it's you know sitting right next to you.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Now, outside of doing like side events or non VGC events at the major scale, again, Chaos Cup with regionals, ICs, and Worlds, you also do a little side event every summer for us locals. Um, why don't we spin the clock back to 1999 or wherever the hell it came out? I actually no, I think it was like '01, and talk about your Pokemon Stadium uh, little cup you do that is now like a staple thing that everyone in the area looks forward to.
Oh no, I hope that's not true, because this year we're probably not going to do it this next summer, because I'm replacing it with the other thing that I'm doing. But uh, So I definitely can't do both of those, so I apologize. But yeah, so I joke with people that Pokemon Stadium was the first open team sheet format because you have the four moves just readily visible to anyone if it. And so that one was entirely player driven. The first time I did it, there was a player who was doing one of my at the time premier challenges and was just saying, "Hey, I would really love a format that's not main VGC." And then we were just talking, and then this particular person said, "What if we did Pokemon Stadium?" And then I was just thinking, "Is that even allowed? Can I do that?" And I had to ask several professors if this was a thing that was allowed. And for better or worse, the advice that I got was submit it for approval, and if it gets approved, that's fine. And so I did that, and it was a lot of fun. And I think a lot of players got to enjoy doing a format that they don't normally do, and kind of challenge themselves, and also either relive some old glory days or learn what their ancestors did for the younger players. In my case, it was definitely reliving my childhood. By the way, that noise, if the mic picked it up, that was my dog Cheese yawning because he squeaks when he yawns. So that's what you're hearing.
I just heard that. And with you mentioning cheese, this kind of loops into everything. So at the beginning of the interview, you mentioned one of the main things with events at these majors is it allows people to show up, and it's not about this zero sum. I have to win. I have to get points for worlds at these events. With the upcoming changes to the format, where now it's top 75 make worlds. There's no points bar to gun for. A lot of players were disappointed because, at least with the points bar, even if it was difficult for some players to reach, it gave them a number to reach, and now it just seems like a massive uphill challenge zero sum game where there are people who were active players now feel like there's no point in playing unless they can win a regionals because they feel like there's no way to get to worlds. Um, so in this sad zero sum scenario, you and a few of the other New England TOs came up with, and actually this you guys came up with this a little before, and honestly it was a perfect thing to do. You and the other New England TOs came up with something very revolutionary, and I haven't heard anything similar to it. Do you want to introduce the idea, or at least let everyone know what you're doing?
Well, for those who haven't heard, we're doing this fun little thing. We're just going to call the New England Invitational. And I want to set the expectation right now. I have no idea if this will be an annual thing, and it probably won't be an annual thing. So please savor it while you have it. We actually started planning this in January of this year, so we had no clue that the format changes were coming when this happened. We so basically, I threw we were just a couple of TOs and I were chatting in a group chat, and I jokingly was like, if I ever I used to tinker in this notepad of just like tournaments I would run if I just had unlimited money and power and time. Uh, and one of the ideas was a local invitational. And to be perfectly honest, it was very largely inspired by what is known as the PAX Pokemon League, which is a grassroots thing that happens at PAX West, PAX East, PAX South, um, possibly even PAX Unplugged, if I remember correctly. And what I always loved about the PAX Pokemon League was that the attitude of the leadership for those tournament organizers. So none of those are like professors or even TPCI affiliated. This is all grassroots run just by different people who just love Pokemon. And their entire attitude towards running their league is that we want, this is not something where someone's there to just be the literal best. The goal is to make something that the average person can achieve and make it something that people can feel really good about, and also just something where you have a tangible proof of your accomplishments. And so what they do with their league um, is you go, you're all through this gaming convention, and you find people that have the gym leader scarves, and you'll challenge them to a battle. And if you win, you get their badge. And if you get enough badges, you can chase down the Elite Four, and then repeat that whole process until you're champion. Um, and there's even different difficulty levels where, so, oh, and by the way, the picture you're seeing for the visual version of this podcast, the one with me and the Annihilate, that's actually my gym leader profile picture from this year. And I really want to apologize in advance if the original artist did not want that. But I hopefully am doing this in such a way to honor this person and give their art just a little bit more publicity. This is made by. Let me try to make sure I am pronouncing the name correctly. It is their online handle is Ruppy, Ruppy, and this is a wonderful artist, wonderful person. But yeah, so at any rate, so I always loved the idea. So like I think their general philosophy, getting back to the origins of what inspired the New England Invitational, was they had this attitude like, you obviously want something to be a challenge and have it to be fun, but I think the way that the PAX Pokemon League philosophizes Pokemon is that, like, this is our thing, our hobby, to take a break from how serious the world can be and how difficult the world can be sometimes. And we want this to be fun and a challenge, but we don't want it to be like your whole job. Like, you shouldn't be training your entire year just so you can win the PAX Pokemon League. And they want something that is doable with, limited income and limited experience. And there's also different difficulty levels, like I was saying earlier. So I was a gym leader that offered what was called the casual gym challenge, where someone who is not a competitive player could just roll up with their in-game team and have a fighting chance. And I would both predict differently and also have a much more casual team. There'd be a veteran one for people who are a little bit more advanced and know some of the deeper mechanics and want it to be like a more sincere challenge. And then for maybe exactly like one or two people in that entire crowd, there was a secret me personally tier where I would use an actual VGC team. And that was kind of fun. But yeah, so I thought about that attitude a lot of just, life's hard as it is. We don't need to make impossible goals that only like two people are going to actually accomplish. We should make something that is a challenge, but also has a wide range of difficulty levels that you can choose, and also a wide range of different ways to kind of go about it. And at the end of the day, we're celebrating Pokemon. We're not, putting it on this unreachable pedestal. And so the idea behind the New England Invitational, like that, I basically put this thing in a group chat just saying, like, if I had infinite money and time, this is something I would do. And I put out the roadmap for what I thought this would look like. And the immediate response from the TOs in the group chat was, well, now that you've told us that you thought about this, you can't not do it. and so the idea slowly became a thing where I wanted to introduce the idea to the different TOs that were involved, but I wanted to let them contribute, but not, put it all on them. And at the same time, I wanted to share the different perspectives and ideas that I had, but I also didn't want to like take over the group at the same time. So I sometimes joke to myself, I'm not necessarily the founder or leader of this thing, but more like the chaperone, if you will. And so for those who have not seen what this is, the end goal is it's an invitation-based tournament that you can do. It's going to be July 19th, 2025, so mark it on your calendars. And similar to the PAX Pokemon League, there's a couple different routes you can take depending on like what difficulty level you want or like the way you want to play the game. So there's what's called the classic route, which is very, very inspired by the PAX Pokemon League, where if you top cut very specific league cups or league challenges throughout the season from specific TOs, you get a gym badge. And for those who like the Cheese League, where my home team is, there is a gym badge that just has my dog just putting his head on the couch and just kind of staring up at you, and it's very cute. Um, and
That's the only badge I want. Like, I'm going to go for the other three, but like, if I finish the season without a cheese badge, I failed.
There's I have not seen all of the badges yet, so some of them are still being printed. And I apologize to the players in advance because none of us had any clue that the season was going to start in July. So we were scheduling all of the prep going into building the New England Invitational, assuming the season was going to start in September. So please bear with us if you don't have a badge or if you don't have badges available at your local events. But there's a badge I saw yesterday that was really, really adorable. That was just Meganium staring into the sunset, and the sunset's the New England logo, which is great. But yeah, so there's a classic route where you can collect a minimum of 4 badges. Right now, there are exclusively only 4 badges, but we are trying, no promises. We are trying to get one more badge that is in Connecticut, one more badge that is in Rhode Island, just to round out New England, so it's not just the Massachusetts Invitational. That's one where, again, no guarantees. We're trying to do it, and I apologize in advance if we can't do it, but we will do our best there. Then there's the championship point route that is just a flat CP bar. If you get 100 championship points by any means necessary, you're in. This one I'm really excited because I know a couple players that either were at like 101 last year or they were at like 98 last year. And so I'm really looking forward to seeing them in particular. So and this part in particular inspired this because I wanted a goal for someone who's just good enough to start getting championship points, but not so good that they're going to be top 75 in the world or getting 500 points or what have you. And then there's a third route that's specifically for professor points because we want to reward people who are serving the community, and we want to reward people who are making all these events happen. And then last but not least, we have a very high play point bar intended similar to the community service route of just we cannot have this New England Invitational and we could not have the local scenes that we do and all the tournaments we do if we didn't have the players to substantiate it. And so as far as I'm concerned, if someone gets this very, very high play point bar just from play points alone, even if they don't accomplish the other ones, they have contributed so much to the community that I want them there. I want to show my appreciation for someone who has given that much to the community. And so those are the 4 routes. And then the way the tournament's going to go the day of is the main events will be a Swiss style best of 3 with a top cut, just like you would for any other VGC event. And then those who do not make top cuts can opt into a B bracket tournament that'll be best of 1, and they'll get to change their team to something else if they choose, and then compete again. And both the A bracket and B bracket will have little trophies to take home, which will be nice. So a lot of fun. I've been, like I said, I've been working on this since January because I just really wanted it to. One, I wanted it to be something people would genuinely enjoy, and 2, I wanted this. I didn't want to reveal it or announce it unless I knew for sure it was going to happen. Because if we went through the planning phase and something didn't work out, I didn't want to tell people what's happening and then disappoint them. Yeah. And there were a lot of steps to that, trying to find a venue that could hold the number of people we thought were going to qualify, planning out how many people we thought were going to qualify based on the system we created, trying to convince TOs to not only participate in this and handing out the badges, but also designing and ordering their own badges and doing all of that. And really, from the bottom of my heart, thank you to all the TOs that are being a part of this and giving out gym badges because as it is, the tournaments are not cheap to run for people. And in my case, I'm almost always operating at a net loss. But in my case, that's intentional because I want my events to be cheap, so that I want my events to be very affordable, so that because accessibility is such a big deal to me, like I was mentioning in the previous episode. Um, but paying for the badges out of their own pocket, both in terms of commissioning a design and ordering them and making sure you have enough for everyone who's going to get one, like that's that's not nothing. And so for everyone who's involved in this, thank you so much.
Yeah, no, and I think one of the main reasons why I wanted to bring this up is, again, with the changes that have happened, um, building up your local scene and helping people just in general, like giving them other reasons to play that aren't just a Worlds invite, and then also giving them multiple ways to accomplish that. Again, it's you might not be able to get the 100 points, but if you're able to cut for specific events, you can get that. Especially now with the points changes for locals, where a PC like a challenge win last year, well, this year is now worth half of what it was last year. Actually, a challenge win this year is worth less than second place last year at a challenge. So something like that, or even just like you go to you're the person going to a couple tournaments a month locally and giving them a chance where, hey, I might miss it. I might be at like 80 points, but I got the play points to go with it or something. And then, of course, giving the professors and the TOs and the judges thanks as well, because we don't have these events without them. I know we discussed a few things before. This is like the curveball question to an extent. So for people who are listening to this who are not from the New England region, um, what advice do you give them, whether it's players, organizers, judges, in trying to develop their community more and trying to get maybe not a massive invitational going, but just to kickstart their local area and get their local VGC going?
There's one of my favorite quotes from a certain television show. Somebody basically just says, like, what do you do when you can't do anything and you can't do anything about it? And the answer the person got was, you do what you can. And I think most of the professors who are professors, and I say that as the umbrella term because not every professor is a TO and not every professor is a judge, but uh, I think most of the professors really want to make the Pokemon scene a better place, and they might not be able to change the larger structure as a whole, but they can change their specific events. And I approached the New England Invitational the same way I approached my league challenges and league cups, in the sense that, well, I'm my former Premier Challenges and former Midseason Showdowns.
Yeah.
In the sense that, even if I have all these things I want to do to make the lives of Pokemon players better, whether it be like making more queer friendly local events or making more trans friendly events or what have you. And just because you can't do something at the largest level possible does not mean you can't do anything at all. And I really want to emphasize that the New England Invitational it's going to be great, but it will also be very much this is what I have kind of thing. The venue is heavily limited to what I could afford, and in many other ways, just different things. And so, but we're gonna do our best with what we have, and that's okay. And a big part of why I became a professor was, even if I couldn't make every single tournament ever, a safe place for trans people, I could at least make my own events a safe place for trans people, and so on and so forth for all of the relevant isms that we're trying to undo with our society. Yes, I know, puppy. Hold on. We're almost done with the podcast. Just give me a little bit more time, cheese. And so I guess the best thing I would say, so the advice I would say is, even if you can't do the biggest thing you've dreamed of, you can always do something. And those things matter. And, you might not be able to change the entire world of Pokemon, but you can change your specific little circle in a way that will mean the whole world to somebody else. And that means something. That's an accomplishment.
No, that amazing answer. That definitely is something like it's. It was when everything was announced to change in the format of events. It's like that day just seems like a down day for everyone, um, and to be able to find a silver lining somehow, to be able to regroup. I think now more than ever, community, especially like your local community for the VGC, is more important than ever. And it's like, I mean, I can use another recent example. This past week, as of recording, we had our first Rhode Island VGC event in I don't know how long, like at least since pre-COVID, if not longer. And that was something that it was important to myself and a few other Rhode Island players. And we were lucky enough that to get the TO and the shop to just give us a chance. And on a Tuesday night, we were able to get 18 people out. Some of them driving well over an hour from Boston down to Pawtucket, Rhode Island to support this event. So it's like when you have this community, like you'll support each other, you'll find ways to get everything together and to give yourself more reasons to play than just I want to go to Worlds. The path to get to that end point is almost it is worth it in that sense. So
Um, I,
oh
sorry, what were you gonna say?
no, you can go.
I also just kind of want to jump in because I've been, um, in the interest of trying to make the world a more understanding, gentler place. I've been simultaneously, trying to make sure different staff hear the thoughts and feedback and feelings of the players in this transition period, but I'm also trying to do the same backwards, where I want players to try and understand a little bit of the staffing experience as well. And so uh, I do just want to emphasize, be kind to your TOs, be kind to the people running these large events, because 90% of the people you talk to are not going to be the ones that had the decision, that made this decision, but they're working with what they have, just like we are, and largely taking the brunt of everyone's feelings about this.
Well, thank you very much. I know Cheese is anxious waiting for his dad, and you've already answered my usual what is your favorite thing to cook. So, yeah, with that being said, any shout outs you want to give, things you want to tag before we sign off?
Oh, no. I knew you were going to ask that because you asked it last time, and then I forgot, and then I just blanked again.
We know you're not we know you're not a social media person, so you don't have to go into that too much.
Well, I'll just say if you're reading this, if you're listening to this, thank you so much, and I have a lot of love for everyone in this community, particularly the ones that are also trying to make safe places and safe spaces for queer folk, femme folk, people of color, like anyone who's like trying to just make the world a better place. Love you dearly. So we're all in it together.
Yes, we are. And if you like this interview, you can listen to Chalkey's first interview, going a lot more into his experience with trying to make safe places in VGC on our YouTube page, episode 6 of the Littleroot Record. You can also listen to a bunch of other interviews with the Littleroot Record, our podcast proper that comes out every single Monday on YouTube and on all DSPs, Spotify, Apple Podcast, etc. You can find us on our social media, on Twitter at LR Lessons, on our Discord, which is usually linked in the bio of these episodes, or on our Twitter as well, where you can find us and have all discussions. The Discord community is currently popping up right now because as we're recording this is within the first 24 hours of Regulation H being announced. So it is very active and a great time to join the Littleroot Lessons community. As always, thank you very much for listening. And Chalkey, thank you for joining us.
Everyone, thank you for having me. And have a great day, everyone.